Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good night, good morning from where you come. Today we're taking a look at the extension of our tutorial that we have with our rectangular walkway, and it will basically be creating a structure that will be able to create those bottom pieces that we have in the rectangular gardens here as well. And we are taking a look at getting the thickness correct, as well as like this little downward path here. So take a look at this video. It's very important that you will watch the whole thing so you'll be able to understand, and I'm trying to understand to explain it the best way of how we passed from just this very simple structure here in the beginning to getting to the final result that we are about to see. So stay tuned and let's go. So we are going to just put this aside for a second in case if you want to take a look at something I might have to cheat a little bit, but we're going to start from that point here. So we have our, let me deactivate this, we have our geometry, and now we need to define basically the endpoints. So there will be this line here, okay? And then we need to define like a rectangle that is basically perpendicular to this point here. So depending on the line where it comes from, this rectangle will be defined rather differently. So this will be like this, that will be like that, and we want it to be consistently, so this end path has to be correct, because here as well as you see is the end, it also goes in there in a certain way. So in our case we're actually doing it so it will be cut through. Here they have it just like in the same height, we will do it so it will be perpendicular. Anyway, so we're going to do this by using the shader command again that we also used in the last tutorial, and we are going to define the endpoints of our rectangle that we have here. And we have to use the under pull, no, it will be under analysis, and then it will be curve closest point, and we basically are taking this point that we defined here at the end frame and at the beginning frame, and we are going to use the curve from that. So we are able to put this point on the curve. However, what's even more important, we're getting the parameter that basically defines the point that we want to use. Because yeah, we're going to use the under division. No, it will be under, well, it's perpendicular frame and Control Alt. So it's under analysis. Yeah, under analysis perp frame, the perpendicular frame. And we're going to use the curve that we defined here, and the parameter would be the parameter that we defined in that sense. So we are having the parameters now, and as you see we have them exactly the way we want to have them defined here. So there are exactly every time kind of like following this curve. And the good thing now is we can use this as the basis for our thickness. So we can create a rectangle that will be used for those planes here. And we're just gonna disable, like uncheck this, and you see it basically fits exactly on those planes we defined before. Now that we defined those, we can very simply just sweep, and we can use the rail. So it has two things that we're going to use, the rail and the sections. And the section will be the rectangle that we defined here at the bottom, and the rail would be obviously the basic line that we defined beforehand. And as you see, it already defines a very nice and thick module here. We could also be constructing a domain to maybe make this a little bit like smaller. So we're going to construct a domain to increase or decrease the x and y sizes, and we're going to use a number slider here, and that will be also negative. And so it will be starting positive and going to the negative, and we're going to put this in the X and the Y size, and then we can also now manipulate that. It might actually take a little bit of computing power, as you see here, so that might be a problem. I must actually also buy binoculars, so you are able to see. This is nothing you need to add, this is just like a plugin that helps you to see those things here on the top. So now that we have our nice things defined here, we want to also define the length of another of the steel thing that comes out of it here. So we already have our planes defined, at least those, and we need to define the planes as well on the other side. So we're going to use those here, like those are our planes, and we are going to basically make a small rectangle that will be the same width as here, but it will be a different height. It will be a different height because we want the steel thing maybe to be a little bit smaller. So you're just gonna copy that here, and we're going to use it from the X or Y side, I'm not exactly sure, and we're gonna use a different domain for the other side in this case. So we're going to use the base plane here. Let's make those invisible. Okay, we want to actually, like, just so you know, there is some plane issues here in the beginning because this one is turned 90 degrees. We could fix that, but I'm too lazy to do this now, so we're just gonna leave it as this. But we are going to use the original planes as the Y size and this as the X size, and now we can basically make this very kind of slim thing here that will basically as a main point of this steel construction. And we're just going to use a box rectangle that will be here as a height that will be rather long, because we don't need to we will want to cut this off in the end anyway. So basically, just to draw this down, we have our main thing here, then we have our steel thing coming out, and it will be very long. However, we are just gonna have like a base plane anyway here, and now then this part will be cut off. So we're just gonna take this part only as our main steel axis. So this will be done by simply just extruding this rectangle now, and you see it actually extrudes into the wrong direction, so we want to extrude this into the negative. So like this, just like 100, just like make it very long. As you see, there will be like very long legs, but those will be cut off anyway. And we're going to use the same thing with the we're also going to create a rectangle for the other planes as well, and those will be actually, as you see, they will now need to be positive. That I think is the reason why that is because the way we were going from this plane in the beginning and going to the top and then to the bottom again, so it basically is turned around the other way. Anyway, now that we have this, we are going to use we had a base plane here in the beginning, this one, and we're going to move this a little bit to this well, negative, let's say, not to the south, to the negative, and by a factor of like, you can just like type in -10 and then smaller than 0. Actually, I want to have it a little bit, not 0 points. And we're gonna move it to downwards, basically. Just gonna hide this initial one, and this will basically be our our cutoff points. Okay, so we're gonna move this one to our plane here, and we are going to use the let me actually take a look where exactly it is. It should be under split brep, exactly. So the cutter will be our main plane, and the brep that we want to brep, whatever, however you want to pronounce it, are our boxes here that we defined here. So we're just gonna put this in here, and it will give us two results actually, and we need to list them out because there will be like one on the top and one on the bottom, and the index will be already at 0, so I think that will give you us the correct results. So yes, that already looks pretty good. So we're gonna hide the things that we made here for the moment, and this already looks quite promising. So yeah, that's very good. What I also want to do is I want to create, I want to get this middle point of this point here, and I want to create a line that follows through, because when we're going to the main thing, there's also this kind of line that's following the main construction. So we want to follow this line as well. So we can do this like in several ways, but I think we're just gonna deconstruct the plane. Yeah, okay, we can do this in the following way. So we have our plane defined, and then we are having also the z-axis, which would be a vector, and this vector needs to go from here to the bottom. So we're just gonna copy that over here and take this vector here as well, and we're gonna create a line, or we can just I think the best way is we would just create a line for now that starts at the origin point, goes into the direction of the z-axis, and has a rather long length. So we're just gonna take the length from here, and we are going to do the same with the vector here. The direction is the axis of this one, but it needs to be negative in this case again. And now we want to have an intersection in between the surface that we created and we put downwards. So this will be from here, and the curve that we have here. As you see, it will create us those points at exactly the right right area. And now we have those points defined, at least from each of those sides, which is very good. And we have to go now connect them all together. So we're going to curve and then under spline, and we're going to use the interpolate one because it goes through all the curves, through all the points. If you would use the NURBS curve, it would not catch all those points. So you want to use the interpolate one. And when we are putting those points in, as you see already, if you put a panel here, you would actually also see it. All the points are right now, like each point is in a different group, let's say, or in a different branch of its tree. So we want to actually flatten those points and use them as the vertices here. Vertices, and now we have them very nicely connected. And we're going to do the same thing here, and we also need to flatten, right click, flatten it here as well. And in order, again, this one is kind of like a weird, like special boy here in the beginning. We also want them to be connected together, and so there will be also like a small surface there as well. So we are going to use the offsets in order to create a certain boundary surface that will be created there. So this will be just offset loose. You can also use the normal offset, but offset loose kind of it's a little bit not so direct or not so precise, but it gets the job done, and it's way faster in computing power. So it's very useful to use this one. So we're gonna create it this one time here. We're gonna use a small number slider, and we also do a negative as well. I think we might be able to just put it in here 2 times. Just copy this one, put it in here again, and by the way, just with shift and then dragging it in here basically makes this small plus sign. So we want to created like this. So we're going to use also create some endpoints from at those curves here that we created, and we're gonna basically put them together by making a polyline through them like this, and we're going to use this for every point, kind of maybe like very direct scripting. And now we're just going to join those together with join, and we're going to use this curve here, this curve there, and then this curve. So we will basically the end curve point curves, and then also the offset curves as well. And we're going to do the same at the bottom. With shift click, put them in there, and now we have a closed planar curve each case, and we're just gonna use a boundary surface, this one, and also at this one, and this will create our surface that will be around here. So let's hide the unnecessary items that we don't need. Let's try to group those things a little bit together so we know what we're talking about. And yes, here basically you have all your different parts that you need for your script. And when we are taking a look at the preview of Rhino, we would be able to have a very nicely previewed shape. Let me actually just put a rectangle around it, so I just want to see how it would look on the surface. This it's a little bit too high up. So yeah, interesting. So yeah, if you compare it to these ones here, even though they're they actually cut off in the straight way, in a non-straight way, so they're actually also angled. I wouldn't say this is necessarily the worst case, because it would be actually easier to be constructing this way, and you would have a very clear, defined wooden things here. So I think this is actually quite useful. Let me actually just put a quick under V-Ray. We were just gonna put a very simple wooden texture on it, because I want to take a look and see how it would look with texture. Okay, I think obviously the textures need to be aligned correctly. At the moment I think they are not. Anyway, but yeah, I think this already looks quite close to our final thing. In the next tutorial we're either going to take a look at how to make those constructions with the bolts and stuff happening, so this will add some further realism. And I also originally wanted to make those upper parts, like the parts in between those things here as well. Yeah, those ones here. But I think we can also maybe do this in the next tutorial. And I also want to take a look at rendering it correctly, so there will be also some kind of how do we want, can we make it look realistic, and we look at the lighting and all those kind of things. So we might do this as well. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope this helped you a lot. Let me know if you need, if there are any questions, and I can just get right to them. Have a great evening, and see you in the next one.